So, welcome to this series, All Life is Yoga. This is a series of webinars being held by the Gnostic Centre since August as a tribute to Sri Aurobindo in his 150th year. All Life is Yoga is taken from Sri Aurobindo, whereby he indicates that everything that we do can become a means to connect with the higher consciousness, offer to the Supreme, and thereby become a means of uniting with the highest. This is the third webinar today, and the focus today is health. Ila Ghosh will be moderating this session. Ila herself is an avid cyclist, very enthusiastic about fitness, and is a wellness coach, among other things, being a market researcher and a facilitator of education and self-development. So today the hat she's wearing is of wellness. So I invite Ila to please begin.
Thanks, Anuradha, and welcome everybody to this webinar, which is called From Disease to Greater Ease. It's about conscious healing practices. We've got some amazing speakers, some really wonderful panelists, and I'll briefly introduce you with one line about each person before we move on, because you must have actually read about it in the brochure that we circulated earlier. So let me start with Dr. Maria. Her full name is Dr. Maria Scunziano Singh, but we'll call her for the webinar Dr. Maria. She's actually a trained doctor, a medical doctor who's done an MD, and is also an NMD, which is a doctor of naturopathic medicine. And she's a proponent of authentic healing, and she's based out of California. We also have with us another doctor, Dr. Monica, who is actually trained as a doctor, but has now become is on a very unusual journey. She describes her journey as walking on the razor's edge. She had bladder cancer in 2014 and is now fully recovered, and today doesn't go to any doctor and completely believes in her ability to cure herself, and she calls the bladder cancer a gift. So she says she's had this gift of bladder cancer, which has allowed her to live the kind of life she does. We then have with us Mariana Bari, who we will, for this, since she's also Maria, we will be calling her Mariana. Mariana, it has an unusual story. She had a terrible accident in Oroville, and where she was very badly hurt. And at the end of the accident, when she was recovering from it, she realized that all the learning that she had was really academic, and the accident made her sort of look inwards and has actually taught her a great deal. And we'll be talking about all the learnings that she had through that very terrible accident. Our last panelist is Rishad Santuk, who lives in Mumbai. He had been to Pondicherry in 2000, and that is where he actually found that he had a different calling. He originally trained as a caterer, as a chef, and has now moved to be to do craniosacral therapy. He actually he believes that he has found the work that he is meant to do, and that work has been brought to him through Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So these are our panelists today. And what we're going to do is we're going to start first, we're going to have different rounds of questions, and we will go person by person. So our first question really is about how the mind-body connection works in healing. And I would call upon Dr. Maria to share some of her experiences with us.
The mind-body as it relates to healing. We have a mind, not a single mind, but it's a universal mind amongst us as human beings. And we are a product, if you will, of our universe. And our minds are actually influenced by our universe and our environment. And more closer to the individual submind of the universe, which would be our body, we have our local environment that is usually there to influence how we function, how we operate. And when those forces or environmentals around us are in harmony with our bodies as they're manifest, we have balance, we have peace, we have harmony with our environment. And if we continue that along that line, we continue and maintain the order and balance. Once the forces about us in our environment, our external environment, that is external to the body manifest, that each one of us is, those forces are overwhelming. That is, the stressor is overwhelming. The body will become overwhelmed. And it is up to the person, the individual, to recognize that stress and to face it and use the mind of the universe, right? To come in and to understand what it is. Recognize it consciously, either allow it in or resist it. And to resist it is the essence of health. To resist the forces that will come in as we say, adverse, aggravated forces. But if there are good forces around us, that is good stressors, sunshine, happiness, nice people, wonderful attitudes, joyful experiences around us, we generally maintain that wellness, that ease. It is really the external forces that come from whichever, wherever, that can be positive, they can be negative. And if we perceive them as negative, that's generally when we become ill in one form or another. So there is, that interaction with our universe. The local is the most impactful, but it can be from afar as well.
I thought at this point it might be nice to ask Monica about your feeling about the mind-body connection and your experience with it.
Yeah, thank you, Ella. So for me, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer in 2014 while I was almost pregnant with my second child. And the cancer was developing when I was pregnant, and I didn't get to know about it, although I was bleeding in the urine. But I was, maybe I thought it was a urinary tract infection because it will come and go away, come and go away. So I really kind of remain ignorant, if I can say, of the actual matter for many, many months after it started developing. So mind and body for me have been really very, very connected, that whatever state my mind was in, the body tells. That's what appears to me. For example, if I am having a migraine, the mind is in a bad shape and the body tells, because mother also says that the body is a very docile servant of the divine. And it's transparent, that's why that transparency we see in little children, that if they're ill, they're just, ill, and they rest and relax. But with us adults, somehow we become so distorted that if I am ill, I would just take a discipline and I'll continue to work. I would not rest. So I think this is what I recognized in myself, that I had become too disconnected from my body. My mind was not in the body. It was just lost in the dramas and stories. And for me, cancer has been a very beautiful way to come back home. And to also see that coming back home can be once, and then I can go back again. So it's not that if once cancer has happened, I am, all my mind is always home. Not like that, but it's just like one pointer that, hey, babe, where are you roaming around? Come here, come here. So it has been the first knock on my door that you have to better be home. And that's how you can be totally yourself. And after that, I think the journey just continues. Almost a new phase of life has begun for me, recognizing that mind is usually not with the body, and to also maintain a cleanliness of mind through what I am thinking, to be aware of the thoughts, what I am feeling all the time, lost in the drama and melodrama of the life, which makes us sick. So to be a little detached from the thoughts and feelings, so that I can really own my kingdom rather than being puppeted away by it. And that's how I have been leading a life that, without being in diagnostic scans again and again for years, which doctors would recommend for a person like me, I feel that it keeps me on living on an edge, that I have to be even more conscious, since I'm not going for any routine tests. Otherwise we become too lazy and comfortable that a doctor is taking care of me, I'm okay, so I can allow the garbage in the mind to go on. But now I can't do that. So every time I go to to pee, for example, because it was urinary bladder cancer, and that's where I would see the blood, I feel first of all very grateful that I am alive and still kicking. And secondly, that whatever drama may be popping up in the head, I can let go of that, because it's not important. Life is too short and I can't allow that garbage in the mind. So yeah, that's how.
I have
Yeah.
just one question for you before I move on to the next person. And that is, how would you describe what you call home? You said now I'm home. So how would you describe that in terms of the mind-body connection?
So home means, I would say, living knowingly as consciousness, that I am the one, not the thought, not the feeling, but I am the one who is conscious of the thought. So as mother would say, to identify with that consciousness that makes us conscious of a thought, of an object, of a feeling, of a sense perception, rather than to live as a thought, live as a feeling. So again and again, keep coming back home, whatever drama may happen, to identify myself as the knowing rather than what is known, so that I can step back and detach and live true to myself rather than living true or slave to my thoughts or feelings. Yeah.
Right, nice, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe Mariana, could you share some of your insights in your journey, again, from the point of view of the mind-body consciousness connection? You're on mute.
I very much agree with Monica. I have learned this lesson as well, and I find I would add to it and say the mind is very as important as the body, and being responsible, having the responsible for my body and for my mind and all the other parts is something which I've learned. I cannot afford to just give it away to a doctor, to somebody outside. It's my body. I have to respond to it. And I have to figure out what these little symptoms, the little ways my body is telling me that there's something not wrong, I have to cater to that. I have to be very mindfully be aware with it and understand I have to attend to it and see from where does this come. Is it from part of the mind, an old mindset which is troubling me and is then transferred in the body as something, as a dis-ease? So tracing that very minutely, very carefully, being deeply connected to this body, which I'm so grateful to still have. And the value of having this body has changed a lot after my experience. And I give it a much greater attention, understanding it that this is my place where I can manifest. And I have to, from there, be very aware of what is happening and being very centered in the body. This time I had several diseases, and with this one, the voice kept coming that I have to go deeper inside the body, deeper and deeper. I had in a previous encounter managed how I can switch off. I had the method where I could just disconnect and watch the body from outside. But there was this very clear voice which told me, this time you have to stay in the body, with the body, for the body, and go deeper and deeper and reach from there, within the body, connecting to the self, to the deepest part.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really amazing. Maybe we can move to Rishad. Rishad, what have your experiences been with the mind-body connection, especially because you have a more sort of physical way of dealing with illness? So how do you see the role the mind plays in the work that you do?
Hi, everyone. So basically, I think my experience went back a long time ago to 1988 when I discovered that I had severe IBS. For years, I had suffered with a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. And I was finally diagnosed by a gastroenterologist who said, and I remember the wisest thing at the end of all his advice on saying, what foods to avoid and what to do. He says, basically, I remember he said, when everything here stops and when the mind stops, it's stress. Your intestines will also stop, basically stressing out. I then made a very concentrated effort to start finding ways to de-stress and calm myself. And my first palpable, I had a severe lactose intolerance in the sense I couldn't even have anything closely related to milk and milk products. And I remember somebody suggested at that time Vipassana. This was way back in, and this was 3 years later in 1991. And I visited and I did the course. And there was no option over there with the diet that was served. And I remember we would be served glasses of milk and curd in addition to everything else. And I had to eat it. And I was absolutely fine for the entire 11 days that I was there because I was deep in the practice of stillness. That was my first experience of real concentrated form of any connection or meditation. And I remember I was so amazed by the second day that I thought this wasn't my body, this wasn't me. How is it possible that I have no pain, that I'm absolutely fine, absolutely calm, in harmony with myself, till I got back to Bombay. I came back into my situation and I realized the same thing started again. It was like two different people. So I started going deeper and deeper within. At that time, people like Louise Hay and affirmations helped a lot. And I started realizing then the power of the mind, the force field that is available for us. And it's interesting that the word force field that was used in craniosacral and Sri Aurobindo, who use the same thing, who use the same turning. There is a force field that is available to us. And it is for us to choose from that force field the thoughts that come that we need to apply positively to our body. So if I get up thinking, for example, in that case with IBS, oh my God, I'm going to be in a certain situation where I'm going to have to eat these foods. And I know I'm not going to be able to do it. As opposed to getting up and saying, you know what, I have an unfailing doubt in myself, this belief in myself, this belief in that force field, or the divine, or God, or whoever you call it, that unfailing trust that if you align with that will harmonize all parts of your being. and that you will be okay. And then I realized slowly that they were developing this trust and trusting myself and trusting the guidance that I received, that slowly and slowly my IBS disappeared. It was interesting because it was actually underlying a mild depression, which I then went through and worked through that as well. I luckily did not require medication for that depression. I just went to a lot of very extensive counseling. But my counselor also believed very strongly in homeopathy as a last minute resort if I really was down. And with the combination of tweaking my diet, but at the end, it was just finding a daily harmonizing still practice that made me calm the mind. And I could instantly feel that the moment that happened, every cell in my body literally harmonized and responded to that state of stillness, calm, and centering. So that was my experience at that time of the mind-body connection.
That's amazing. The one thing sort of that comes to mind hearing your stories is that, you know, at least the three of you have been through, you know, transformative experiences which have pushed you in a certain direction. But what about people who, I mean, is that a sort of pre-requirement before you get to the stage where you're really well connected with your mind and your body and you're well aligned? Or can lesser mortals who have walked that path also get to you know, developing that mind-body connection? Maybe Dr. Maria, because you've seen so many people go through this, maybe you can start with this.
Yeah, he's very correct in that we have to still ourselves, and many people are lost. They're lost in the current state of the world, where there are so many stressors, and fear is driving the bus right now for so many, and has been. There's nothing new about it. But you know, once one is brought into a healing environment, that is, they recognize someone who can help, and or a community or a place where they can go, where there's calmness, there's quiet, there's no need to fear, there's no need to be on guard. It takes knowing that place, putting yourself into that place, that starts the journey for healing. So, for instance, you have a young person, a very young person who doesn't know and understand. It could be a 5-year-old, 6-year-old child. That person has to be brought into an environment of healing. And once in that environment, that child can be healed very easily. With the nurturing, with those around, and can provide that nurturing environment to allow for that child's natural healing, because the child possesses natural healing. We all possess it, but a child has resiliency that goes beyond those who are older than 5 and 6. You know, the young child has a lot of resiliency. As the child ages, the resiliency changes a little bit. A lot of factors come in, but we can take that. We can take a child. We can take a teenager, adult, an elder adult, and put them in an environment where there is that harmony and peace, where they can have a sense of calmness. Remove the fear element, and once that happens, and there is a nurturing, and knowing that you can, you know, you can achieve wellness again, you can achieve the balance and the harmony again, which you have experienced a dis-ease or a disharmony from. That's where healing and wellness comes. I've seen many people come with the most incredible illnesses, multiple illnesses, or one devastating illness, and have worked with these people and put them in a state of ease, taking the fear away. And once they can see that that's possible, it's the transformation is just, it's almost automatic. I've seen it happen before my eyes, that we can have instant relief of pain, relief of a sickened mind, a sickened body part. It happens very quickly, as long as we have an open mind, someone who's willing. That is another requirement here. If we take someone to a nurturing environment and that they're willing to change or to be changed through these thoughts and the nurturing of the environment. So I have seen healing before my eyes and have been instrumental. But it really is the individual, as these three wonderful people have experienced that wellness. They've been brought back to balance, recognizing, being open, and allowing the natural that they have, the natural powers that they have to manifest. We all have it. We just have to be redirected either through our own thinking process or with someone else to help in that process.
Thank you. That's a really unusual perspective, which sort of takes me to the question that how did and maybe Mariana, you could start with this, which is how did you get, as Dr. Maria said, redirected to look inwards? How do you get redirected to find your natural resilience or your natural healing, which you obviously did? How did it happen for you? What were the stages that you went through to find that?
I would say there was a lot of grace involved. I remember that the first thing of the accident was that I found myself enveloped by this amazing, extraordinary love, which just penetrated my entire being and held me. Like I felt like I'm in the most loving lap of the greatest ever possible mother. And from this sort of experience of loving, I was hit and run over. And this was something which helped me so deeply, that experience of love. And I realized that the only way to heal is to move in that into that loving myself into the healing, which meant everything had become, it could have been a completely turmoil. I never asked myself, as I've seen so many other people, why me? Why did that happen to me? It was right from the beginning a challenge, and always, guided and held and being shown the next step to take. And from this, I remember that this most crucial point after my operation, where I could not move anymore, I didn't know where my hands were and my feet were. And the doctors were telling me that if I don't move by the next day, I will never move again. And I was very agitated on one hand, and then there was this amazing thing that I realized, even if the agitation won't help, I had to accept the fact that if that is the case, so be it. And at the same time also holding on to that hope. And from that hope, being able to call out for help. And amazingly, the help came in the most bizarre vision of entering into the brain and finding inside the brain the messengers were all sleeping. And the voice said, the messengers have to be always awake and alert. Wake them up immediately. And there I was, waking them up with all the means I had, and finally managed to wake them up. And I walked with them from the brain down into the arms and into the fingers, down into the legs and the feet, and opening with them the pathways. And next morning, when the doctors were all standing around my bed, I'd forgotten all about it. And they told me again, as every morning, move your right foot. And I suddenly remembered, and I told them, just give me a minute. And I went back to that space, the control space in the brain, saw that the messengers were awake, walked with them, went down the foot, and moved the foot. And they were so amazed. They all stood there with open mouth, and even my surgeon, he had tears in his eyes. And we moved to the left foot and the right hand and the left hand, and there was movement back. And I suddenly realized that if I had panicked in this whole thing, I would have lost it. So
Yeah.
so being in that sort of very deep connection with the body and the mind, and trusting the guidance, trusting the next step that has to be taken.
That's actually very powerful imagery, of waking up the messengers and then, walking with the messengers through your body. And, that's extremely, I mean, I could see you doing it. Like it's so powerfully described. Monica, did you have something similar when you were, looking within and, healing yourself from within? I mean, how did it work for you?
So I think I would really resonate with what Mariana just shared and what Dr. Maria was sharing, but I would really resonate with the content of their sharing. And for me, it was also, this along with consciousness, because consciousness is one with the body. So actually being very intimate with the body, which visually we are not, since we take our bodies for granted. It's just doesn't matter. All of us have a body. So what's, abnormal about it? But once you lose it and then you gain it back, I think then gratitude appears that, oh my God, what a miracle are we running with, every day we have a miracle 24/7. And as if we don't recognize the miracle, all the systems of the body are operating by themselves. And if they don't get bad, we just ignore them. We hardly feel grateful. So I would really resonate with what Mariana was sharing, that becoming one with even the cells of the body, the particles of the body, being in very intimate connection with them, came to me through cancer only. Otherwise, I was not in the body. I was really lost. And along with this also comes to me the importance of pain to wake us up. Because as Sri Aurobindo in Savitri, he says, the importance of pain. He says pain is the hammer of God to break the dead resistance in the mortal's heart. And I feel that the kind of evolution human consciousness is at, we are so deeply in the slumber that we need the intensity of pain to wake us up. And the example I use here is that imagine that me and my husband, we are both having a heated argument over some emotional turmoil, or what I did, what he did. And the moment there is fire in the house, all of that goes to the garbage bin and we run to save our lives. So I wonder that why don't we have this fire all the time in our house? Because we should know that death is right next the corner. We don't have as much time as we think we have. So shall I still be wasting so much of time in, mostly we waste a lot of time, lost in our thoughts and things which are not really that important and prior. Would I still be wasting that much of time if I knew that the death is just round the corner? So it also gives me, this immediacy of death, that it's not that I will die, I still have 20 years left for me. Anything can happen any moment. So making the best possible use of this human birth, what is to be done must be done. That's what, yeah.
That's again, another sort of different way, a slightly different way of looking at it. The fact that that every day is a miracle, that every day is an offering that you have. It's a gift. It's a special thing that you're alive for one more day. You've realized it because you came so close to death. It's an important takeaway for all of us to realize every day that we are so close to death. I mean, one day we're here and the next day we could be dead. To live like that is extremely difficult. And I'm again going back to wondering, what about people who don't have these kinds of wake-up calls, who don't go through this kind of pain? How do they actually arrive at the same place? Maybe Rishad could help us there.
Well, I think that I think today more than anything, we have this amazing help out there, that wasn't perhaps, I mean, there's more and more available to us as we enter, of course, 2022. There is more than ever available, I think, now with, so much that happened during the pandemic and so much information that's available online, that I think that the first thing to do is probably find out exactly what is happening with you. Seek help. Don't be afraid to speak your truth. Don't be afraid to feel vulnerable. Vulnerability and openness to speak your truth is a strength rather than a weakness. Seek for it. You'll be surprised from which angle it comes from for a lot of people. I was very lost at the time as well when I was seeking it. It was like my life was one thing before I touched the samadhi and went to Pondicherry, and my life was another thing after. There were two chapters. But up until that time, I was very lost too, but I was lucky enough to be able to be vulnerable and speak out and say, I am feeling this and there is something that's not okay. As Dr. Mariana said, there's amazing amount of help out there. You'll be surprised from which direction it comes from. You will be held, you will be nurtured. There are people, there are institutions, there are therapists. Friends will guide you, well-wishers will guide you. I even remember somebody giving me a pivotal piece of information by just looking at me through another friend and saying he's not okay, he needs to call somebody. So there is a lot of help out there for people. Then I think there has to be a belief and a determination to overcome what you have. It's not easy to get that there, but I think to have the belief, to develop a strong sense of trust also then in the help that you receive, and the fact that there is always this force field available to you. For us, we are devotees of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and we know that they are available to us, the integral yoga and all the energy that it carries. But to everyone who is connected to anything, you can even believe in, plants or animals or just the universe or the elements, whatever you may call it, to believe that there is something out there to support you. So I think if you just work from the premise that you are not lost and that there is something and somewhere to be found, and you can find yourself through that and come back through that. So that's the way to go, I think, to start, to start a genuine asking and a genuine seeking for that, for that, at least the first step. And then you can do it step by step, take a little step at a time. Start with help, start with perhaps just a regular doctor, then you go to a specialist, and then you go to, maybe a counselor or whoever it may be that you need in your field. There's a surprising amount of stuff that's out there. So I don't think anybody at this stage, and at least that we are in today, we are in extremely lucky times, I think. Because of what's available out there for us, I think.
Okay.
In
you think
terms
it's
of
more available now than there used to be?
So much. There's so much more available. I mean, it's amazing the amount of information I gathered just on YouTube during the pandemic. The kind of learnings that I got about so much. It was incredible.
Okay. Which sort of takes me to, I mean, since sort of Rishad's gone down that path, which is of, providing advice or, suggestions or tips to people who would like to live a more holistic life, a life which is more deeply connected, which is much more conscious. What are the things that, you would say? I mean, I thought some of the things that Dr. Maria was saying about, removing fear, being in an environment which is nurturing, peaceful, loving. These are wonderful things, but also extremely difficult to do and not within reach for many. So firstly, what would you say people would need? And as Rishad was saying, there's so many resources available. How would people go about getting these resources? Maybe Dr. Maria, if you could help us with that.
Well, first of all, to have the connections, to be able to connect, that is through these various means, through the internet, through local doctors, local health providers, and so forth, knowing that they're there. People need to reach out to these resources. They are there, they're available. People come in, for instance, here to our center where I do integral healing, and they've come from other places. This is oftentimes the scenario in my center, where people coming from other places and have found that they have not had that nurturing or supportive environment, and or they're just told you can only do this. They're usually coming from a conventional practice being a practice based on pharmaceutical and or surgical and or some other harsh means of taking care of their problem. So they'll come here, and hearing about me and the others who I have here at the center through the internet or through friends, family, references, people who have been here before. They're hearing, they're checking out these ways and means, and they come and ask for my guidance. And once they come, they just come to the environment here, and they see how it is so peaceful. It's warm, it's receiving. Everyone, no matter who they are, they come and they see a difference right away. There is an atmosphere that is not threatening, not putting them in a position where they have to feel defensive. And I think that's so important. They know, and again, they've either heard it from someone else who's been here, or they look on the internet or other, means of communication. So it's important that people do find out through this one, that one, and so forth, where they can find a nurturing, supportive, loving environment where they can put behind the fear and whatever is the foe that they feel in their head. What I've just seen so many people in so many different situations, whatever is causing their illnesses, there's so many factors. And again, if you're not in a nurturing environment, it makes it very difficult to sort it out and to get to that place that allows you to open and just kind of open your heart, open everything, and allow someone to come in to the space. For instance, we do what's called energy healing. Some people call it Reiki. I call it pure bioenergy. I come into the person's little energy field, help them who are looking for the help, who are looking and willing to be helped, and we start to process what's going on inside of them, and amazing things happen. So to find out where we are, and for some people, it's almost like a feeling, a drive that takes them here, even without hearing about it. The fact that we're here through a internet or through a friend, some people come here because they're just drawn here. So there's that, which serves as a driving force. The feeling, the knowing that brings them present. So, and for instance, you have in India, you have Sri Aurobindo and the mother and the Samadhi. You know of that place, but there are people who just are drawn there, not knowing consciously, but unconsciously, if you will. This different knowing will bring them into the presence of this wonderful atmosphere. So there are different ways and means of people getting to where they have to be. And they don't need, and don't get me wrong, people don't have to go anywhere outside of themselves. There are people who, just as these lovely people here said, right within themselves, even in that atmosphere, it could be a very stressful atmosphere, within themselves, are able to work with their own powers, work with their own, which have been given to them by the universe, and able to overcome. So there are different ways and means, and you're brought when you are ready. You're brought to yourself, or you'll go somewhere where you will then find yourself with the help of a nurturing environment that will help you bring you back to balance, which is what harmonious, loving life is. Balance, and then there's gratitude, as Monica has said. The gratitude comes, and then you just continue and continue in that mind of gratitude, and you keep doing the right thing when you recognize what wrong things you may have been doing.
Monica, what would you say, as words of advice to people who want to come to the space that you're in and who want to be, want to experience where you've been without necessarily going through the pain of having reached here? What would you say people could do? What advice would you give them?
I think if it's already a miracle if I'm open to receive and want an advice. So you already said it, because most of us are not open as adults. Children are very open, receptive, wanting to be a better and better version of themselves. But somehow as adults, we stop. We stop to learn. We think that we are the best. How can we be better? So I think that ability to be open, as Dr. Maria was sharing, to be willing, I think then the doors are open. And as all of us were sharing, that we do receive help if we are willing. If that willingness, the seeking to be a better version of yourself, it's there, I think it's already halfway done. And then the journey just goes on more beautifully, because then you are not resisting the path. You are open to receive and enjoy the life as it comes to you. So I think for us, it's a win-win situation, because as Mother says in her prayers and meditations, that the divine victory is certain. So whether I take a detour or I collaborate with the divine, being willing, ultimately we have to realize who we truly are. So I think it's now dependent on our free will, that if I have become receptive, can I choose now to collaborate with the divine and find my true nature, know who truly I am, rather than getting the blows and the pain and hammers of the life, and that will make me learn. So the journey is win-win situation, I feel. Yeah. So that's what I would share. Yeah.
I think that's lovely. I think that's actually a great takeaway, which is, being willing to seek and to learn how to collaborate with the divine. I mean, that those are absolutely wonderful things. I'll get back to that at the end, but maybe Mariana could also help us with some advice that you might like to give to people who are looking to be in the space that you are in now.
Well, as Monica said already, where there's a will, there's a way. One has to be first searching for something. And I'm sure when you start searching, you will find. And if you open, you get guided and you find one thing after the other. And I think one of the important things are that one has the willingness to go within and start searching there and put the searchlight on there to go deeper and not be so much distracted by all those possibilities on the outside, and finding a more clearer path that leads within, and that the clarity comes from there and the deep connection. And on that path, I feel what needs to be daily done is as we are cleaning our house every day, our mind, our body has to be cleaned. There has to be a cleansing taking place. And in that, spotting immediately what comes in the way, what negative thought, what triggers what, and respond to that and be attentive to that. And not just what I realized when I was saying, loving myself into healing, not to be that hard master, not to be too immediately judging, but looking what this thing which has to be cleansed, or the fear coming up, or whatever comes up, to be willing to look at it and attend to it. Like they say, have tea with the demon, invite him in and look at it, what it is, and not running away and looking outside and everywhere and getting lost on the way, but on a daily level, just clearing up whatever comes, attending to that.
That's wonderful. Actually, that's very similar to what Monica was saying just before the call, where she said, you need to clean your toxins every day. You just got to clean, as things arise, you just sort of start, clearing them up.
It seems to be endless at times, but it needs to be done. There's no other way.
Yeah, but very nice analogy, Mariana, about, keeping everything clean, like you would keep your house clean, you keep your mind clean, keep your body clean, and you have tea with a demon. Wow. Tough one, but I think, if the good thing is that, having tea with the demon gives you a greater understanding of the demon and how to deal with it and eventually move it out of your way. So
yes, and gain, because in that invitation, the courage, the sort of capacity to release the blocked energy behind it is so amazing. And if one makes it a regular habit, I find it's easiest in daily writing. I generally start my day if just offloading, and whatever has come, or in the evening, just meeting the demons in the writing and just seeing what's behind it and getting into a dialogue with it.
Wonderful. That's really wonderful. Rishad, how would you have tea with your demons? What is your process?
I would say that I'm very much in sync with what Marianne Mariana is saying, in that I think it's a daily thing now. It's you wake up, you have the authentic empowerment to choose the thoughts, the first thing in the morning that come into your mind, or into your energy, or into your wherever they are coming through, is to choose those thoughts wisely. It's to then find that area of stillness where you receive guidance and listen to it, trust it, follow it. Once you know you have been doing it and things are working out well, then you just unfailingly trust it and go ahead with that. I also believe in the cleaning of the body, of a daily conscious movement of choice that you choose. Anything from, whatever, your cardiovascular to stretching to yoga to qigong to, again, everything, that so much is that available out there. Again, you don't have to seek classes, you don't have to do anything. It's all available on YouTube there for you. It's then, for me, I think I feel I am very much of the belief that you are what you eat, partly. I mean, not all of it, of course. So to find, to eat consciously, whatever diet that suits you. There's not a particular diet that should be advocating. I think each individual has their own needs, and some person may need meat, somebody may not. So find us and eat consciously, I feel. And like Monica was saying, offer it to the divine, if one doesn't have a choice. And then, of course, if you have the privilege to do a certain work that you love doing, to seek that. If you're in a position where you can't, then probably find some time in the day to do something that you really love doing, other than the work that you may have to do for some reason. Not everybody may have the luxury to do the work that they love to do, or find the work that they love to do. But if you're not there yet, then at least find that. And for me, very importantly, is a connection to some form of the natural elements or nature on a daily basis. So whether it's gazing at the sun, or connecting with plants or an animal, or just looking up into the sky, or at night, if you don't have a choice in the day, is to connect with nature of some kind and realize that we are eventually from nature, and that's where we come from. And a combination of this should give you hopefully a very deep and sound and conscious sleep, which is also very important. And then just get up the next day and start the whole process again in a very simple way. And then I think one thing just unfolds after the other, and it just gets better every day, I think, if you go through these simple steps and deepen each one of them in a more conscious way. For us, it'd be connecting deeper to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. For somebody else, it may be whatever it is. So that's how it seems to have worked for me. So
that's wonderful. Well, thank you very much, everyone. We've come to the end of the session. It's 9:30. We have a little time for questions. If anybody would like to have questions of the panelists, you're welcome to ask them now. Would any of you like to ask the panelists any questions? Yes, Ashok, would you like to unmute yourself?
It's evening here in England, but it's probably night there. Is it in India? And I don't know whether it's early morning somewhere else. So the appropriate greeting. Firstly, what a profound set of speakers. I mean, you just bowled me over, all of you. And I'm humbled by your experience, and I've learned a lot. I have one question. It's on the seeking aspect of healing. Are any clues about the pitfalls of seeking?
That's a very beautiful question, first of all. One gets into a fix listening to that. But I think everything has its pros and cons. Just like Mother says, ego is the helper, ego is the bar. Seeking is the helper, seeking is the bar. I think one can say that. But I think seeking for us human beings at this stage of evolution is important, because otherwise we fall into our comfort zones. We settle down into our limited domains. And only human beings have the capacity to continue to self-exceed. So I think seeking for now needs to be there, so that we can be a better and better version of ourselves, and not an outward seeking, a seeking to be a better and better version of ourselves. Basically, that's what is coming to me. Yeah.
Mariana, you look like you want to say something.
It's maybe more like a joke, saying the other alternative is just to feel that I have arrived.
Yeah. Does that help, Ashok? You're still on mute.
Yeah, I think it is helpful, and I still think that, as Monica said, you have no option but to seek, and I think it's a good advice, because sometimes you feel you've found it, like Mariana said, but in fact you have not found it. What you might have found is you might have found pride or hubris. You find it quite common in the people who have suddenly discovered religion, or a particular type of religion, or born again, who seem to be so certain that, from the listener's point of view, I am not affected. I'm not impressed, if you like. And I think the other thing about people who are realized, if I may use this term, is that you sense it with them. They don't have to tell it to you. They don't have to fill your ears with it. You could be swearing with them, but you just love being with them. And you know that space, which some of you talked about, I think the space is also present in others. And sometimes being with somebody who decorates that space gives you an idea, oh, I could do that because I know which room is there in my mind, which is closed, and I can do that. And sometimes they affect you when you're not with them because something keeps ringing. I think in terms of being conscious, which is, I like that concept. And I always ask myself, who is conscious? You know, okay, you're looking at thoughts and you can looking at emotions and other things, but who do you side with to say, yeah, that person is observing? Who is the observer? You know, and I don't think the conventional tools of thinking or feeling or any other thing, or being in a group doing a particular ritual, necessarily defines whether you're in that space, you know. But there, I call it, I tell my children it's intuition or super intuition. You know something is not right, don't question it too much, just do it. Some of my major decisions in life have been, I don't feel right about it, I'm not going to argue about it, I'm just going to get out. So these are some of the things that are crossing my mind. The other thing that crosses my mind is, why are we being trapped by language? Because when you say you're with somebody, with some of my best friends, I don't need to talk anything except something else. It's not about the relationship or how I am. It's about sharing something which is superficial because you know the other bit is there. But I think the moment you start using language, you do get into a trap. You know, you people are talking about the mind and body. I don't think there should be a dichotomy personally. The fact that it came into the evolution of human thinking at some stage, and our current language, I'm a retired doctor, and towards the end of my career, I said to my colleagues, we are practicing a reductionist type of medicine. I don't believe in it. Because it was trying to reduce things on, say, on questionnaires. If you tick 10 out of these, out of 20, you have the condition. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't like that. If they qualify for a threshold diagnosis, then they should get this medication. I didn't agree with that at all. You know, I like to share the space, and quite often I used to tell my patients, I benefited more from this consultation than you, because of the way they enlightened me. Sorry, I'm giving you a mixture of things, but these are some of the impulses coming out of me to throw at you, and maybe you'll forgive me that.
No, that's very interesting. Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to ask the panelists any questions? Any of the observers would like to ask panelists any other questions?
I just want to ask Rishad. One, you mentioned the you used a abbreviation for your gastro problem, IVS or IBS, something like that.
Yes, IBS.
What is that?
Sorry, I should have. It's called irritable bowel syndrome.
Right. Okay. And how does it manifest?
Basically, stress. It is stress induced and also induced. It's a combination of stress and also induced by a host of irritable foods that each one has either an allergy or an irritation towards. And it is basically a lot of indigestion and a lot of gripes and a lot of the feeling of having not moved properly, basically.
Movement,
Not-
the bowel movement is
Yes, not eliminated completely, and always feeling that sense of irritation and gripes, and always feeling like almost like an incomplete bowel movement, which leads to gripes, which leads to more irritation, etc.
And you thought that it was perhaps linked to the lactose intolerance, but it wasn't that. It was basically the mind, the environment, as you said.
Yes, it was both. I think both each contributed to the other, because the stress affected the gut and the gut lining and the muscles of that whole area. And then the foods that I was eating unconsciously, I didn't realize were irritating and further irritating. And then that was leading to more stress, which led, so it was like a vicious cycle, basically.
Right. Well, we've actually come to the end of our session. I just want to say thank you to everybody for the time and sharing their valuable insights. It's been just so enriching to listen to all of you. And thank you to the people who joined us and for your questions as well.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thank you. And we will have another webinar every alternate month. We hold this. We have not yet decided the theme. I'll be in touch. It will be in February. Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot.